From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Waodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, train derails in Shea along the Kaduna-Abuja route. Nigerian Railway Corporation holds train service until further notice. 128 kidnapped victims reunite with their families in Abuja. Academic Staff Union of Universities launches nationwide protest over long-standing demands. And Israel's IDF claims Gaza hospital strike targeted Hamas camera as hostage families stage protests.
On business, the central bank sets October deadline for payment companies to adopt global ISO standards.
On sports news tonight, PSG women unveil Rashida Tajibade as new signing. Super Falcons captain joins on 2-year deal.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, federal government imposes 6-month ban on Shea nut exports to curb informal trade.
Tonight, we begin with an incident that left many passengers stranded. A train that derailed earlier today along the Kaduna-Abuja route, causing major disruption and panic. The incident, which occurred around 11 a.m. today, left many of the train coaches overturned and 6 passengers with minor injuries, while many others were left severely distressed. The passengers were later evacuated to Abuja and received by the managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Mr. Kayode Okpeifa. Shortly after that incident, the Nigerian Railway Corporation announced the suspension of the train services on the Abuja-Kaduna route until further notice. And according to the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, an immediate investigation into the cause of the derailment has already started.
In the early hours of Tuesday, August 26, 2025, videos of stranded passengers of the Abuja-Kaduna train surfaced online. The video showed passengers picking themselves and their belongings from the train rack. A statement by the Nigerian Railway Corporation at the time confirmed that the train en route Kaduna derailed the rail tracks between Kubwa and Ashen Station at about 11 a.m. The statement added that emergency rescue, medical personnel and nearby hospitals have already been mobilized to the scene. While a total of 618 persons were on board the train when the incident occurred, a train conveying some of the passengers arrived at the Idu train station, and 75 of the passengers were said to have been offloaded at the Kubwa station. A passenger on board narrated her audio.
It happened, what made the train to derail, but as it is right now, most of us are traumatized because we are at the point of facing death, but we thank God for life.
A representative of the Ministry of Transportation, who was at the scene of the incident, gives an account of the rescue operation.
The train derailed some few minutes after 11 in the morning, and the MD immediately got in touch with the ministry. The Honorable Minister directed that I should go to the site and assess the situation, evaluate and see how we could move the victims out of the place. We got there and there was serious interagency collaboration. The Army were there providing security, the DSS were providing area coverage with helicopter. DG NEMA was on ground personally, and together we coordinated the evacuation. 7 people were injured, and the 7 of them were treated there by doctors, and some were moved from there to the National Hospital with ambulance. Ambulances were made available immediately.
Meanwhile, the Managing Director, Nigerian Railway Corporation, announced the suspension of train operations along the Abuja-Kaduna Way till further notice.
All passengers on board were accounted for. The ticketing company has commenced the return of their payment for the trip. All passengers will be refunded back, whether they demanded for it or not. The fee they paid, the ticket fee will be refunded, and that process has also commenced. We know everybody who bought tickets. We know all those who are also workers on the train. We've learned from the previous experience. But the important thing, like you said, is no fatality. 7 people had injuries, and not life-threatening injuries, but traumatizing though. The next thing is to assess the operational condition. That, for now, would just keep the operation suspended until we have a better clarity of what is going to happen.
Furthermore, Channels Television was on the trip to the incident scene and confirmed no passengers on ground or left behind. This is Asham Station, where the train derailment incident occurred earlier today. Though investigations are being conducted by the NSIB, the NRC, amongst other critical stakeholders, hopefully the results from these investigations will help forestall future occurrence. From the Asham Station, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
At least 8 people have been killed and 8 others injured in separate attacks by suspected gunmen in Agwanrimi, Chawai Chiefdom, in Kauru local government area, and in Angwan Fulani, Kukuyi, Kudan local government area of Kaduna State. The assaults, which occurred in the early hours of Monday, broke nearly 2 years of relative peace in southern Kaduna. The chairman of Chawai Development Association, Chief Abel Adamu, says the attackers stormed Angwanrimi while residents were asleep, alleging that they came from Mango in Plateau State after violence spilled over into Kaduna State. The National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, has handed over 128 kidnapped victims rescued to their families. The victims were freed by security forces in 2 separate operations in Kaura Namoda in Zamfara State. The NSA, who praised the security agencies for their efforts, has vowed that those behind the abductions will be tracked down and brought to justice.
It's a happy moment for 128 kidnapped victims as they file into the conference room of the National Counter-Terrorism Center to be united with their families.
Okay, it's okay.
The coordinator of the National Counter-Terrorism Center provides details of the rescued victims.
They were rescued in 2 batches. The first batch were rescued on the 14th of August, which comprised 42 individuals, 14 males, 27 females, and a toddler. The second batch were rescued on the 19th of August, comprising 34 males and 54 females. So, unfortunately, among the rescued batch, second batch, we lost one of the children due to illness.
Without mincing words, the National Security Advisor vows to track the perpetrators of kidnapping as he commends security agencies for their efforts.
More innocent Nigerians have been rescued from the hands of criminals who sought to deny them their freedom. Today, a total of 128 persons were rescued from Kaura Namoda. This is a remarkable achievement and a testament to our resolve as a nation. Today is not just about their return. It is about reaffirming our collective resolve as a nation to create a more secure environment for every single person living within the territorial boundaries of our beautiful country. Let me be unequivocally clear. This work will continue. There will be no respite in our operations. There will be no safe haven for those who terrorize our citizens. We will hunt them. We will find them, and we will bring them to justice.
As the victims are reunited with their families, the National Security Advisor is promising to ensure that they are treated for trauma and helped to settle down in their communities.
University lecturers in Nigeria have taken to the streets again to protest unpaid allowances and outstanding entitlements. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, staged nationwide demonstrations rejecting the federal government's new loan scheme and warning of another crisis if their long-standing demands are not addressed.
From Jos to Zamfara, Kogi and Bauchi in the north, and Lagos, Benin, Rivers and Anambra in the south, lecturers carried placards accusing government of neglect and broken promises. In Lagos, at the University of Lagos, members of ASUU expressed their grievances through placards with different inscriptions.
The general public should also know that ASUU has written several letters to the federal government of Nigeria, drawing its attention to the need to resolve this crisis amicably. Lamentably, the federal government has always turned a deaf ear to all our pleas.
Sooner very soon, we are going to strike again.
In Edo State, members of ASUU, University of Benin chapter, threatened to join their counterparts nationwide if the federal government does not honor the 2009 federal government ASUU renegotiation agreement.
Enough is enough! To be clear, we have the renegotiation of that agreement, which contains our conditions of service, to inform the Nigerian people that we have been on the same salary for 16 years. It has never happened anywhere. It is only in Nigeria that lecturers and academics are treated with so much disdain.
River State lecturers are also part of the protest as they back the demand for improved welfare.
A graduate assistant takes home, and what I'm giving is gross, 169,192 naira. It is from these salaries that individual lecturers are expected to cater for their families' health care, feeding, rent, clothing, water supply, transportation, and sundry other needs.
Same for Anambra State as members staged the protest. At the Federal University Lokoja, Felele campus, the union members first held a Congress meeting shortly before they staged the protest, chanting solidarity songs, holding placards with different inscriptions on it.
We expect President Tinubu to come out and do the expressful, honor the 2009 agreement.
At the University of Jos, branch chairman Jubril Molus described the new loan initiative as a poisoned chalice, insisting lecturers need their withheld salaries, allowances and promotion arrears, not loans to survive.
How can government ask us to take loan to pay the school fees of our children? We reject this in all its intent and purpose. Hereby, call on the federal government of Nigeria, ably led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to renew our hope by addressing our demands to avert the looming crisis in the university system.
In Gusau, the Zamfara State's capital, ASUU leaders say that funding of universities has been left largely to TET Fund, while staff grapple with months of unpaid wages.
Federal government has actually shifted, their responsibility to TET Fund. Even the TET Fund needs service, and it's also a brainchild of ASUU. Are you getting it? So things are not working out the way they should. Lecturers are suffering. In fact, you know very well that the federal government is owing us about 3.5 months' salary when we're in strike on 2020. Yes. And you have not paid me that salary, you want to give me loan. What is that supposed to mean?
In the same vein, Bauchi's chapter of ASUU outlined 8 key demands, including the signing of the renegotiated 2009 agreement and the release of outstanding arrears.
Pay us our withheld 3.5 months' salary. We don't need loan. You can't brandish loan. Nobody is interested in being indebted to somebody.
The effects of the strike may not be felt immediately, but students and their parents alike will be hoping that the parties will settle their differences as soon as possible in order not to disrupt the students' academic career.
In part two, after the break, federal government imposes 6-month ban on Shea nut exports to curb informal trade. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television in Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Nigerian train derails in Jere along Abuja-Kaduna route as Nigerian Railway Corporation holds train service on the routes until further notice. 128 kidnapped victims reunite with their families in Abuja. Academic Staff Union of Universities launches nationwide protest over long-standing demands. And Israel's IDF claims Gaza hospital strike targeted Hamas camera. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, has described the outcome of the ongoing state visit of President Bola Tinubu to Brazil as a strategic partnership. Speaking in Brazil on the sidelines of the ongoing discussions, the Speaker said that President Tinubu is doing extremely well in projecting Nigeria positively to the world. On his part, the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Abubakar, outlined some of the objectives of the defense agreement signed.
This is truly a strategic partnership that I believe at the end of the day will take both the two countries to a higher pedestal. No doubt, when you look at the body language of the president as well as the economic community of Brazil and Nigerians, that this historic visit is going to be a game changer for all the two countries. He is truly doing the right thing. He is doing extremely well in selling Nigeria to the international world. And you cannot get it wrong, because all the fundamentals that every country needs to actually put in place to attract foreign investments, Nigeria within the last 2 years have been able to attend. So we are a virgin country now, ready to accept investment from all over the world.
Well, majorly is on exchanges, training, visits, some discussions among our universities and our institutions, defense institutions in Nigeria and Brazil, and the training of our own military, as well as discussions on the defense procurement and defense industries. We intend to work together to also develop a robust defense industry in Nigeria, taking the Brazilian example. And we have discussed a lot, and I'm meeting today most of the companies, defense industries here, so that we'll see what kind of joint venture, what kind of technology transfer we will have, so that that part of the agreement can be fulfilled.
Let's go back home and head to the nation's capital, Abuja, where Victoria Longjohn is standing by to give us more stories on the news at 10. Hello, Victoria.
Thank you, Anne. President Bola Tinubu has ordered an immediate temporary ban on the export of raw shea nuts. The directive was announced during a meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja, attended by Vice President Kashim Shettima, along with officials from the Ministries of Agriculture and Food Security, Industry, Trade, Investment, amongst others. Our State House correspondent Emperor Simon reports.
Nigeria contributes 45% of global raw shea nuts, with a production capacity of 20,000 metric tons of processed shea butter annually, according to the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. However, the federal government believes the influx of illicit traders coming in to buy from local farmers, especially in rural communities for export, is robbing the country of the full benefits it stands to get from its sheer potential. which is the thrust of this multi-sectoral meeting in the office of Vice President Kashim Shettima. The Vice President announces that President Bola Tinubu has approved a temporary ban on the export of raw shea nuts from Nigeria.
This is a collective decision involving the subnationals and the government at the center. And the government is not closing doors, no. We are opening opportunities. The president is currently in Brazil, and Nigeria and Brazil have agreed to prioritize access for Nigerian shea butter and oil into the Brazilian market.
He notes that the ban, which will be for an initial period of 6 months, is not an anti-trade policy, but one intended to ensure that Nigeria reaps in the gains.
This is a pro-value addition policy designed to secure raw materials for our processing factories and enable industries to run at full capacity, thereby by boosting rural income and jobs for our people.
The federal government expresses optimism that the decision of the president will also encourage more private sector participation in the processing of shea nuts and enhance the income of the local farmers by ensuring that they get value for their labor.
We also currently derive somewhere around $300 million from the export of the raw, but has the potential, if we ban the export, the potential to reach almost 10 times that amount, $3 billion within the next, next 2 years, actually.
For now, it is not clear what will happen after the 6-month temporary ban. Will the government lift the ban afterwards, or will it be extended? Only time will tell. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And the People's Democratic Party's caucus in the House of Representatives has said Nigerians deserve better from the Tinubu administration. Caucus Chairman Honorable Fred Agbedi, who spoke to journalists after an emergency meeting in Abuja, insists that citizens are suffering. The lawmakers also urged President Bola Tinubu to respect a court ruling on the local government elections in Osun State and ensure fairness to the people of the state.
There are massive killings going on across the country, and that shows that a government that cannot protect our people is not a government that is fit to continue in office. This government has failed Nigerians. The APC government, for the past 12 years, 10 years that have been in power, has failed Nigerians, and Nigerians have come to know that PDP is the only party that can bring succor to them. Not only killings, there's a lot of hardship in this country, and Nigerians are groaning in their pains daily. People are committing suicide because the government is not paying attention to them. We want to also use this opportunity to ask the federal government to release, obey valid court judgments leading to validity or validating the local government elections that were held in Osun State. This is anti-democratic, and as a party caucus in the House of Reps, who are lawmakers, we insist that the right thing be done, due process be complied with, legal judgments be obeyed, so that Osun State and the people of Osun State and the local governments will enjoy the benefits of the creation and administration of local governments in Osun State.
And the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Muyi Aino, says efforts are underway to curb the practice of fake finger marking by health workers during routine immunization. Speaking at the opening of the second 2025 quarterly review meeting of the Northern Traditional Leaders Committee on Primary Healthcare Delivery in Abuja, Dr. Aina noted that collaboration with the committee has helped reach over 54,000 zero-dose children across prioritized wards in 100 local government areas. He added that nutritional supplements have also been distributed to pregnant women and infants to boost immunity and improve overall health. The Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar III, leads Northern Traditional Leaders, the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Muyi Aino, and other partners to this quarterly review meeting on primary healthcare delivery. The meeting, aimed at deliberating on key issues relating to polio eradication, is particularly crucial as Nigeria gears up to kickstart a large-scale integrated vaccine campaign in October this year. The Sultan of Sokoto commends the successes recorded so far and calls on government across all tiers to tackle the challenge of insecurity and nutrition.
Feeding is important, there's lack of food, yes, but insecurity is there. Let people go back to their farms by providing security for them. And then we can now say, yes, we have food to eat, we have good nutrition for our children, and we have a healthier society.
The Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, in his remarks, reviewed the progress made in the vaccine campaign this year, particularly in high-burden states, and efforts to reach zero-dose children.
Kano and Katsina in particular have reported significant declines, 85% and 84% respectively. Between April and June, when we did 2 campaigns, we had 71% of settlements, of planned settlements were reached in April, 78% were reached in June. That's a substantial, more than a 10% increase. The vaccination coverage, the number of children that we plan to reach, also increased from 81% to 84% between April and June. Again, that is good. Likewise, in the in-between round activities as well, we reached 77% of settlements with evidence, geo evidence, and vaccinated 83% of children will be targeted.
Efforts to resolve issues of non-compliance and fake finger marking by health workers during routine vaccination were also highlighted.
We still have clusters of our Nigerians, our fellow Nigerians, who have doubts about these vaccines. For whatever reason, they reject it. They are not compliant when the vaccinators go to them. So one of the things that the traditional leaders do with us is they set up what they call resolution teams. We're reporting up to 80%, 84% resolution of non-compliance. What we want is that there's even no non-compliance at all. The incidence of fake finger marking is reducing, but our ability to actually detect it and respond to it is also increasing.
This meeting will now continue behind closed doors, where the Northern Leaders Committee and other partners will discuss extensively on the various integrated supplementary immunization activities planned for October this year. Now, still ahead on the news at 10, Central Bank gives payment companies October deadline to migrate to global ISO standards. That's on Business News. To join us again. Welcome back. You're watching News at 10, broadcasting live from our studios in Abuja. Justice Emeka Wite of the Federal High Court in Abuja has rebuked the counsel to Mohammed Usman, also known as Khalid al-Barnawi, leader of the Boko Haram splinter group Ansaru, and 4 other suspects for failing to appear in court. At the resumed trial, the judge issued a final warning to both counsel and defendants, directing them to attend the next hearing fixed for September the 5th and 12th, 2025.
The courtroom is sparsely filled as the trial of 5 terrorism suspects resumed before Justice Emeka Wite of the Federal High Court in Abuja. With the court set to protect the identity of witnesses, proceedings begin as counsels announce appearances. At the mention of the case, the prosecutor, Mr. Alex Zion, informs the court that the case was scheduled for continuation of proceedings in the trial within trial being conducted in the case. However, it notes that the first defendant, Mohammed Usman, and his lawyer were absent, just as the lawyers to 2 other defendants were also not in court. The prosecutor adds that Usman's lawyer, who claimed to be away in Enugu, had promised to send a representative but failed to do so. Mr. Zion expressed concern that the absence of the first defendant and the defense lawyers was unpleasant to the court's resolve to accelerate the hearing in the 13-year trial. He said the absence of defense lawyers without communicating with the court was disrespectful. Mohammed Usman, who has been prosecuted on terrorism-related charges alongside other suspected members of his group, including Mohammed Bashir Saleh, Umar Mohammed Bello, also known as Dati, Mohammed Salisu, and Yakubu Nuhu, also known as Bello Meshai. They are among others accused of being members of a terrorist group known as Ansaru. The defendants are also alleged to have conspired among themselves to carry out acts of terrorism between 2011 and 2013 in Sokoto, Kebbi, Bauchi, Borno, Gombe, and other states in the northern part of the country. Lawyer to Bello and Nuhu, the third and fourth defendants, Mr. Abdulkarim Audu, agreed with the prosecutor that the proceedings be rescheduled in view of the absence of the first defendant and the defense lawyers. However, both lawyers urged the court to grant a short adjournment to enable parties to make progress in the case within the ongoing vacation of the court.
Let me say that the matter is about 13 years now, but with the coming in of the new regime at the DSS area now, there is a very proactive move to ensure that these matters are disposed of one way or the other. And you can see that we are sitting on vacation now. This is the second time the court is sitting on vacation. Easter vacation, we were here. This vacation, we are here. The reason being that one way or the other, these terrorist matters must be determined. And if they are convicted, it becomes a deterrent to others that, look, you cannot just sit down and then matters drag up and no end product.
Ruling on the matter, Justice Nwite expressed displeasure over the absence of the first defendant and some of the defense lawyers, as he directed lawyers to the parties to work together to address what informed the absence of the first defendant and other defense lawyers to prevent further delays in the case.
And the federal government has launched the restoration of the Voice of Nigeria's 250-kilowatt shortwave superpower transmitter, a project designed to revive the country's external broadcasting capacity. The ceremony held at the Vaughan's transmitting station in Lugbe, Abuja, was performed by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, represented by the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Ugodo Nam. The minister described the project as a landmark step in the agency's history, restoring Africa's largest and most powerful transmitting station with modern digital compatible technology.
Today marks a significant moment in the history of the Voice of Nigeria as we commence the revival of the largest and most powerful transmitting station on the African continent, now equipped with the most modern, digitally compatible technology. As we take this giant step to flag off the contract for the restoration of Voice of Nigeria's shortwave transmission using the 250-kilowatt superpower transmitter, it is appropriate to express our profound appreciation to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his vision and commitment towards the restoration and modernization of the broadcasting infrastructure of Voice of Nigeria. Upon completion of this project, the fully reactivated Voice of Nigeria transmitters will transform the landscape of terrestrial broadcasting and position Voice of Nigeria as a respected brand in the global radio broadcasting for good.
And that's it from Abuja. It's now back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Victoria. At the ongoing Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference holding in Enugu, lawyers and participants have commended Governor Peter Mbah for what they describe as his transformative leadership over the past 2 years. The commendations followed his presentation on leadership and transformation, where he shared practical strategies used in advancing the state. Governor Mbah noted that transformational leadership rests on audacity, vision, values, and a disruptive strategy to achieve meaningful results.
It's another day in the week-long conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, and participants are gathered here at the International Conference Center, Enugu, to deliberate on the topic, Leadership for Transformation. Host Governor Peter Mbah, discusses transformational leadership and partnership with the judiciary.
The future of Enugu and of Nigeria depends on this shared spirit of transformation, bold rather than cautious, principled rather than expedient. Leadership and justice alike demand vision, courage, and integrity. They require us not just to manage the present, but to create a future worthy of our people.
The showcase session began with commendation from Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Michael Zekome, and Senator Dino Melaye for Governor Mbah's developmental strides.
How are you able, or are you able, in a highly politicized environment, an environment that is just infested by political buccaneers, have you been able to navigate through like Omopa, who we are told discovered the river Niger at French, even though he met the people dead with the water?
What I'm particularly impressed this afternoon is Your Excellency's recruitment process in appointing your political appointees.
Other participants at the session emphasized the need for better security and judicial autonomy. The governor highlighted his administration's investments in security for urban and rural areas and also touched on judicial autonomy.
We respect the autonomy of the judiciary, and everything that we do with the judiciary will go through the budgetary process. And once those items are captured in our budget, we implement them to the latter. They actually get their funds from the state consolidated revenue fund.
The event concluded with a presentation of an award to Governor Mbah for his developmental achievements and his role in hosting the 2025 NBA conference.
The biography of Christopher Akande, former secretary to the military government and head of service in Western State, has been launched in Lagos. The book, titled An Engineered Life, was presented to mark the 20th anniversary of the late Akande's death. At that event, former President Olusegun Obasanjo commended the late Akande's children for documenting their father's life and paid tribute to his contributions while alive.
When my brother, Wale, informed us, that's his siblings, towards the end of 2023, about the idea of writing our late father's biography, we all agreed it was a noble and necessary project. However, we were completely taken aback when he added that the book should be printed and launched on the 20th anniversary of our father's passing. The book we are launching today provides an honest and illuminating glimpse into the life and times of our beloved father, C.S.O. Akande, his values, his principles, and his legacy, and also a little glimpse of the contribution of our late mom, Mrs. Olufunke Akande.
He was a very, very good professional engineer and a gentleman. I think among engineers of that time that I interacted with, I will mention Eso Fadamsi. I will mention Teju Hile. I will mention Ukai Sabo. I will mention, of course, C.S.O. Akande. They were not only professional, they were highly principled. They were men of integrity.
Let's turn our attention now to the world of business with Dominic Iwiwu.
Thank you, Anne. On business news, the Central Bank of Nigeria has set a firm October 31 deadline for all payment companies to migrate to the global ISO 20022 messaging standard. This applies to banks, mobile money operators, payment solution providers, and all licensed operators across the country. The CBN says this move will standardize payment data and bring Nigeria in line with international best practices. The Apex Bank has warned that compliance is not optional. Firms must complete migration and implement mandatory geotagging of payment terminals or face sanctions. Nigeria's food security efforts are beginning to yield results, and that's according to the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, speaking on Business Morning about a recent partnership between Nigeria and St. Kitts and Nevis put together by Aquarian Consult Limited. Mr. Kyari believes the partnership will benefit both countries in solving their food problems.
Yes, we have struggled in terms of food security. Mr. President had identified that long time before, when he declared an emergency on food security, and also when he changed the name of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. But you would agree with me, and also Nigerians and viewers would agree with us, that what we have achieved this year, for the first time in the history of this country, during festive seasons, Ramadan, lean seasons, we are currently in the lean season, but prices are still depressed. So prices are down, but the issue here is, let me just go straight into it. We still talk about challenges. I mean, yes, there are challenges, and that's why government is in place to address those challenges. When last year, this time, food inflation was hovering around almost 40%. Today it's 21%. So I think you could see the trajectory of what government is doing, of what the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing to dampen food prices. We're not where we are, but where we want to be, but at least it's giving us an indication that we're achieving. It will not, things like that will not happen overnight. But when you see a direction, that gives you hope. And that's the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President.
The Debt Management Office says it raised 136 billion naira from the federal government's bond auction in August 2025. The sale featured a new 5-year bond and reopened 7-year bond, each with an offer size of 100 billion naira. The 5-year bond got 70 Bs worth 102 billion naira, with 46 billion naira allotted at 17.945%. The 7-year bond drew stronger demand with 111 bids worth 165 billion naira and 90 billion allotted at 18%. Meanwhile, the August total is lower than July's auction, where 185.9 billion naira was allotted. The domestic equities market sustained the positive momentum it kicked off with on Monday as investors continued bargain hunting. Ladi Williams tells us more.
Well, it's another day, another naira. The Nigeria stock market index continues with positive sentiment day 2 of this week, as the market cap hit about 203 billion naira, 0.23% advance there for the all-share index, still sitting at 141,000 points. Let's look at the sectors now. We see the insurance counter couldn't continue in the green, shedding about 0.39%. Lone loser for the sectors and the indexes that we track at this point. Consumer goods, 0.48% to the good, and banking, that's up 0.73%, continuing from the big over 1% rise yesterday. So the top trades now, we see insurance stocks were traded a lot by volume, with likes of ICO and Veritas Capital. But we see for ICO, this share price dipped today, while Veritas Capital, that gained. Now we have 26 stocks gaining, while 31 stocks posted losses.
Thank you, Ladi. Meanwhile, European stock markets retreated on Tuesday, pulled down by French equities as traders monitor the potential for the government to lose a confidence vote next month. Let's see their closing numbers and those of other major equities around the world. And that's it on business news. Back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Dominic. And outside our shores, Israel's defense forces say the troops identified a camera that was positioned by Hamas in the area where a hospital was blown up, killing 5 journalists in Gaza. The military also says that it will examine several gaps, including the ammunition approved for the strike and the authorization process. But that incident has come under intense condemnation worldwide. For the UK Prime Minister, he called it completely indefensible. But here's Simon Pusey with more international news around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
A huge manhunt is underway for a heavily armed male suspect after 2 Australian police officers were shot dead and 1 injured in an ambush at a property in a small rural town in the state of Victoria. Police described the situation in Porpunka in the Australian Alps, some 300 kilometres northeast of Melbourne, as an active incident with hundreds of personnel deployed to find the suspect. Officers were attacked as 10 of them attended the property to serve an arrest warrant, which Australian media said was for historical sex offences. Police say the suspect escaped into the bush alone and on foot after the shooting. Officers are still trying to locate the man's wife and children. Australia has given Iran's ambassador 7 days to leave the country after alleging the country's government directed anti-Semitic attacks in Sydney and Melbourne. Intelligence services linked Iran to an arson attack on a cafe in Sydney last October and another on a synagogue in Melbourne in December. Anthony Albanese said the 2 incidents were attempts to undermine social cohesion and sow discord in our community.
I've made it clear that these sorts of incidents have no place in Australia and that I wanted ASIO and the AFP to investigate as a priority. ASIO has now gathered enough credible intelligence to reach a deeply disturbing conclusion that the Iranian government directed at least 2 of these attacks.
Families of hostages being held by Hamas are protesting across Israel, a day after double Israeli strikes hit a hospital in Gaza. Protesters burned tyres and blocked major roads ahead of a mass rally in Tel Aviv to demand the return of hostages being held in Gaza. It comes a day after at least 20 people, including 5 journalists, were reportedly killed in the strikes on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. The incident, which Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called a tragic mishap, has been met with condemnation, with Sir Keir Starmer calling it completely indefensible.
These latest horrific killings highlight the extreme risks that medical personnel and journalists face as they carry out their vital work amidst this brutal conflict. The Secretary General recalls that civilians, including medical personnel and journalists, must be respected and protected at all times. He calls for a prompt, impartial investigation into these killings.
French opposition parties have said they will not back Prime Minister Francois Bayrou after he called a vote of confidence on the 8th of September on plans for deep budget cuts. Mr. Bayrou, who has led a minority government since last December, called the vote on Monday, warning France was facing a worrying and therefore decisive moment. From the National Rally on the right to the Socialists, Greens and France Unbowed on the left, opposition parties have lined up to say they would vote against him. US President Donald Trump has said he will immediately remove the Federal Reserve official Lisa Cook from her position in a major escalation in his battle against the US Central Bank. He said there was sufficient reason to believe Cook had made false statements on mortgage agreements and cited constitutional powers, which he said allowed him to remove her. In response, Ms. Cook said Trump had no authority to fire her and she would not resign. The head of a native Madagascan king killed by French troops during a colonial-era war has been formally returned to Madagascar. The handover of King Toira's skull and those of 2 other members of his court took place at a ceremony at the Culture Ministry in Paris. The skulls had been brought to France at the end of the 19th century and stored at the Museum of Natural History in the French capital. It is the first use of a new law meant to expedite the return of human remains from collections in France. And a French helicopter crew have survived after the aircraft they were travelling in crashed into a lake while trying to collect water to fight wildfires. An eyewitness filmed the helicopter descending on the body of water carrying a vessel for collecting water before appearing to lose control and ending up in the lake in northwestern France. According to a statement from the local municipality, the pilots, the officer aboard the helicopter and a witness were taken to a local hospitals with no fatalities reported.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Super Falcons captain Rasheedat Ajibade is excited to join the national teammate Jennifer Echegini at the PSG Females Club. PSG confirmed the signing of Ajibade on a 2-year contract that runs until June the 30th, 2027 earlier today. The 25-year-old made the move following the expiration of her contract with Atletico Madrid, where she scored over 30 league goals in 5 seasons.
Since I got to hear about this information, I've been looking forward to just make this happen. But yeah, I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to the season. PSG Brown is a very unique brand, I promise it, because it's a team that I've been admiring from a very good distance. Yeah, I follow a lot from the men's game to the women's game as well. And it's a place where I've seen players evolve, do great things, and of course they've been competing well. Looking at the history of the club, looking at the values and the missions of the club, I think it's a very good club, and I think it's a place for a lot of young players to grow and evolve as well.
And Madagascar booked their place in a historic first African Nations Championship CHAN final after edging Sudan 1-0 in a tense semi-final at the Benjamin Mkapa National Stadium in Dar es Salaam. Earlier this evening, a late strike from substitute Toki Rato Tundraibe in the 116th minute proved decisive, capping a dramatic extra-time contest and sending the Barriers into Saturday's final in Nairobi. For Madagascar, the triumph confirms their rise as one of Africa's most exciting football stories, having claimed bronze on debut in 2022. They will now challenge for gold and become the first island nation to reach a CAF senior final. Morocco also advanced to the final after beating defending champion Senegal 5-3 on penalties after a 1-1 draw in regulation time. That sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. A train derailed today in Jere along Abuja-Kaduna route, and the Nigerian Railway Corporation has halted train services on that route till further notice. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Good night.